Good afternoon YouTube, and today you join me in a Renault Sport Clio 200. Today we'll be taking the car out, telling you guys what it's all about and obviously how it compares to my Mark II 172. So for those of you that have subscribed to the channel or seen a few of the videos, you'll be familiar with Matt's mega selection of cars that he goes through over the years. And today we find ourselves back in hot hatch. He had the S2000 previously. He's also had many other cars along the way that I've really enjoyed. And the 200 for me has always been one of those cars that I've appreciated, never really got behind, not because there's anything particularly wrong with them, but from the stigma that they got heavier, they didn't get a lot more powerful than the Mark II. And you always found that the Mark IIs would do the job. So today he has got this lightly modified one, and we'll see what it's all about. So we'll go through the basics of the car first. Obviously hot hatch, front wheel drive, 200 PS, which is around 197 horsepower, 2 litre 4-cylinder engine, and they have improved the engine over the 172, 182. It now has a much more variable, aggressive cam on the inlet. It also has a different intake, different cylinder head. The one thing that is a little bit of a disappointment for me, especially compared to the Hondas, is they never made an all-alley block. It is still a cast engine bottom end, so it's not a particularly light engine, and that's something that does unfortunately hold this car back, is its weight, especially power to weight. So the car does have the PowerFlex inserts, it's got the lower engine mount, it's got the panel filter, Toyo Sport manifold, and there's some sort of catbacker system I believe on there as well. I'm not sure, to be honest with you. I'll have to check that with Matt. I'll put it in the description. And it makes a nice note, a little bit droney on the motorway, but it's what these are about. You want a naturally aspirated engine in a weekend toy to have a bit of soul, a bit of engine noise, to make the experience. So we'll start first with the interior of the car. Well, for those of you that have driven the Mark II, and I refer back to the Mark II because obviously this was its replacement, for me, it feels much more modern inside. It feels like you're getting a lot better value for money. And I said to Matt, if you had to daily drive a Mark II or a Mark III, this is obviously a nicer cabin to be in. It does feel a lot more spacious. You can still get 4 adults in it, providing they're not too tall in the back. And if you've got these optional Recaro seats, they are just fantastic. For those who've seen my E46 M3, I run the CSs in that, and they just transform any car, but they're still practical, obviously with the recline feature, to get people in the back. So obviously I will mention that the Recaros are optional. The standard seats are okay. Even the Recaros in this sit incredibly high. Now Matt's got a set of custom seat frames on this. As you can maybe see, it's about 35 mil, maybe more, lower than the standard ones, and it literally puts my eye right on the top of the steering wheel. I've got a big thing for the correct seat height, and those again who have watched the channel, all my cars I try and get the seats as low as I can, because it just is horrible when you're on the vehicle, especially when you're quite tall. So for me, if you're going to get one of these, probably the best modification, Recaro CSs with the lower frames. It just transforms it. So on the dash, again, nice looking dash. I don't know why Renault always have this forward slant on the dashes. I never understood it. I don't see it in a lot of other cars. They normally square at you, but they sort of tilt away, maybe for the higher seating position, but then the steering wheel's in the way. But the rev counter looks really nice, sort of like a Ferrari touch, I guess, to it with the yellow rev counter. Nice little feature, and again, revs all the way to 7,500 RPM, which we will discuss in this video. One thing that is very apparent, and probably more so because it's got the Michelin 4 tyres, it hugs the road. Like, it is a wet day for those that are watching. It is not nice. It's 0 degrees out, and it feels really planted on the road, really planted. So as we mentioned, we'll talk about the engine. Again, it's 197 horsepower, 200 PS, the name of the model. It's a funny one because it is a lot like the Hondas. It needs its neck really ringed. It really wants to be round 5,000 RPM and above to make progress. Now, from what we've seen online, and again, it's been a long time since I've driven one of these before, I forgot how gutless they are down low. And that's not to say they're bad, because an engine that requires work in its own way is very rewarding. You can really enjoy screaming a car around, and it makes it a lot more enjoyable than having the delivery of a torque like in the diesel car. So there is a solution though. Engine Dynamics, for those that saw in the last video with the Cup when we got it mapped, have put up a graph showing the gains they get. And now with this car, when it came out, like all the petrol cars now, emissions are becoming so strict. If they're going naturally aspirated, they just seem to cut back, especially on the lower RPM stuff. So it looks like there's a good 15 plus horsepower to be had below 5,000 RPM, which is massive. That is a huge increase in torque and horsepower, especially if you're going to daily drive the car and not just use it as a track car. Now, when you wind her up, yeah, it's good fun. It brings that, I just love it, I really do. I love screaming through the revs. And the gearbox in this, as standard, we'll discuss the flaws a bit later on in the video, are really nice. Nice ratio, nice feel, but always lacks in the sort of height. And Matt has fitted, again like we did in the Megane, the 0-point shifter. Now, they are worth the hype. Honestly, I love driving these. As soon as Matt bought this, I was like, you got to get the 0-point shifter. You know it makes sense because they just feel, oh man, it just makes you want to change gear. It's never going to have that gear shift like a Honda. I'm going to be honest with you, if that's what you're searching. But it gets you very close. It really does, and you just enjoy changing gear. Really is such a positive engagement, and it doesn't rattle. It doesn't feel clunky. It's not any harder to drive with. It's just how they should have come out the factory, and it's such a shame that Renault didn't put that little bit of extra effort in just getting a really nice shift like the Hondas. But like I say, with 0-point, there is a solution. So handling, again, it's a fantastic chassis in this. The whole design from the Mark II is completely different. It's got some fancy knuckle setup on it. And compared to the Mark II, where it's often difficult to put power down, being a front wheel drive car, with this 200 PS, it's a thing of the past. You can plant it first, second, third, even in these conditions. It absolutely hugs the road. Now, this has got aftermarket wheels on it. I'll put the model in the description because I can't remember what Matt said they were, but saves a lot of rotating mass over the already light Cup Speedline Torinis that you can get on these. And with those Michelin 4S tyres, they are just brilliant. But unfortunately, we're on the 4s in this. You can't get the 4S. And I've got to say, actually today, driving on them and being in the E92 with the 4Ss, I can't really tell there's much in it. If anything, maybe a little bit more predictable, but obviously it is obviously a lot less power than the M3. But today we've been out, we even had a point where it got pretty sleety out and they just kept delivering, and we weren't going for obviously 10 out of 10 performance in terms of driving pace, but yeah, really, really impressed with the tyres. So if you've got one of these, you want to make it handle and drive amazing, don't skimp on the tyres. It's just the same for any car really. Next thing, moving on from the handling, is going to be the braking. Now, they really sorted this out because the Mark II Clio, if you took it on track on standard pads and discs, it was disastrous. Even on the road, you could manage to boil those things, but now they come with a big Brembo 4 pots up front, still a single pot caliper on the rear, but to be honest with you, it's wet today. There's enough power there. Even when we were hooning around today, the pedal feels really nice, really predictable, not snappy like I've experienced in Audis, but really progressive. The more you lean on them, the more you get out of them. It really is what these needed out of the factory. Something that is, as I mentioned, a bit of a drawback, and like I say, the gearbox being a shorter ratio, having 6-speed, having obviously the big brakes and all this new fancy wishbone side of things, or this knuckle they put on them, is it handles fantastic, but it did get a lot heavier. I mean, there's got to be a good 100, 150 kilos more than the Mark II, which that's a lot of weight in a car that's knocking on 150 foot-pounds of torque, and you do notice that. If you keep the car on the boil through all the gears above 5,000 RPM, it makes good ground. If you get caught out or you try and drive it, like now, 2.5, it picks up. It's not terrible, but you're not going to win any records with that, whereas get it down the bottom, try and get a bit of, oh no, old Bill.
A few moments later.
But like I say now, keep it above 4,000 RPM, put your foot down. Yeah, that's going. It does get going. There's no issue with that. And as I said, it's not a slow car by any means. 0 to 60 in the 6-second mark. But if you're looking for a dual carriageway blaster or a motorway blaster, there are better cars out there. There are better cars out there. Another thing I will pick up on while we're sitting here at the traffic lights, that's always bugged me with these, is the running cost. Now, on a Mark II, again, 2 litre, similar sort of power output, 15 odd brake difference, you can still get out of a Mark II 35, 40 miles to the gallon on a run. Respectable for a 2 litre petrol, old style engine now. But this, on the motorway, 25, 28 to the gallon, which, considering it's not a rapid motor, it starts bringing the expensive costs to the running side of things, unfortunately. So, would I buy one? Well, to be honest with you, driving it today with the seat mounts, with the shifter, it's also got the uprated engine mounts on it, I have really enjoyed it. It's really made me think, do you know what? I love stuff like this, and the problem is, again, with my stripped out 172 Cup, it's gone a bit too far. It has gone a bit too far. But this, you can go out for a hoon. We went out for a little, like I say, drive, and it was really nice to drive with. And you can still get on the motorway. It does sing a little bit too high in the RPM to want to do a lot of motorway driving, but it's usable. You could drive this every day, pop to the shops in it. It's got a big boot. It's got, 4 seats. No, I don't need another car, so I'm not buying one. I did say this with the ES2000, so hopefully I don't have to crop this footage 6 months later and you see one on the driveway. But I can certainly appreciate them. And like I say, with the few choice upgrades, they really do make a big difference to the drive of the car. So if you are in the market for one, I guess it's important to discuss the drawbacks. Like all cars, there are issues, some bigger than other. So with the basic ones first, gearbox. Probably the worst issue on these is worn synchros. They crunch basically going into the higher RPM when you shift quickly. They can even do it from low RPM if they're really bad. So if you're in the market for one, take it for a good spin, get it all the way around to 7,000 RPM, a good shift, and it should be nice and smooth. If you get any sort of crunch in and someone tells you, oh, it probably just needs an oil service, it's replacement synchros, and you're going to be looking at £1,000, £1,200 on top of the purchase price. So make sure it reflects that if it does have that issue, or obviously budget that you're going to need to get it changed. Second one, not a massive one in terms of mechanical failure, but a bit of a pig to fit, is the exhaust flexi. So the exhaust manifold's got a flexible joint in it. It splits. Normally you would take a manifold off, repair it, replace it. With these, subframe down, again, it's just a big job. It's not something you want to be factoring in when you've just bought one. So if you can get yourself underneath it, or you can hear any blowing, factor in that it could need the exhaust flexi. Another big one, again, because of the age of the cars now, not something that causes you to break down or be stuck somewhere, is the thermostat. The thermostat, after about 10 minutes of driving, should be on the second line, and it should sit there. If it drops back down to the first line, it's going to be a thermostat and a coolant change. Again, £20 part, so not a big thing, but more inconvenient with the downtime, having to replace it, coolant change, if it doesn't need it. Moving on to the suspension, again, it's an incredible design on these. It really does show between the Mark II how much they've improved it. But the issue is the bushes fail in the lower arm section of these, and I haven't had to replace them because the Mark III wasn't something I got too involved with when I worked in the Renault Sport scene. But again, it's a big job pressing out. It's not just a case of removing the wishbone, throwing it away, putting a new one in. It's an expensive job to get it done. So if you're driving the car and you're feeling it tracking all over the road, budget that you are going to need to spend some money, especially if it's done the mileage, getting those changed. Final thing to note on the problems, I mean, again, it's not something that's going to leave you stranded, but the Recaro Sportster CSs, the bolsters fail on them. And when they do fail, they wear, they split, 200, 300, 400 pounds to get retrimmed. So have a good look at them, make sure the bolsters haven't broken, make sure the fabric hasn't ripped. Otherwise, again, just more expense if you are in the market for a used one. So what are you going to pay for one of these? Well, again, it depends whether you buy the normal version, whether you buy the Cup, whether you buy the Cup packed one, which is what this is. It's basically a normal version with a few of the nice features from the Cup one, different dampers. Dash, I believe, is a little bit different, but it's not massive. But if you're looking for something that's going to resell well, most people want the Cup packed, especially now as it's more of a weekend toy in its price range. They're anywhere for a 200, £4,000 up to £6,000, there or thereabouts. But get it open. Oh man, that is good fun. That is really good fun with that slick shift as well. Really, really enjoyable. Not really wearing the right shoes for heel toe today. But again, wet weather, second gear, still sort of in the turn. Really goes. Really good fun. Really nice little power band. Really nice. It'd be interesting to see what one of these would have been like if Renault could have got it down to just over 1,000 kilos or did a special version, because it really would have picked the power up. It doesn't need more horsepower. I'm driving this today. I don't feel shortchanged with the power. I just feel that it could just do with a bit more edge to it. And I think if it could have lost 100, 150 kilos without being an absolute horrible daily driver, they'd have been onto such a winner. And that's not to say it's a bad car, but if you drive a Mark II, 172, 182, not as nice daily, I'll agree there with that, but a lot more fun, a lot more raw. It just feels like you're really getting the most out of it. Whereas it does feel, like I say, refined in this. Big heel. Second gear though, in the wet. Not sold on that little beep. It does like a beep on the shift. Reminds me of the RX-8. Matt says he quite likes it, but it's not for me. Now, these as standard have got fabulous arches on them. As you can probably see from the external shots, they really do have a nice road presence on them. The problem is the offset on the wheels as standard. They sit so far in, whether that's to do with compliance of selling in certain countries, I don't know why they've done it, but basically they need to come out if you really want it to sit nice. Now Matt's gone with, on his original wheels, 20mm spacers all round and the Cook Sport Spring, so it gives it a nice level look. It doesn't look slammed in the back, just a clean drop. Being in it today, it rides really well. I mean, the British roads are bad on a normal day, so I've been really impressed with it today. I haven't felt that it's been a horrible ride to be using on the road, and it does look really trick when it's spaced out. Now he has replaced the standard wheels for these lightweight Sparco ones. Again, something I'll have to put in the description with the model, but they save weight on rotating mass, and anytime you do that, it improves the drive of the car. And again, like the Cup Speedline wheels, looks really smart too. So like now, talking about that lack of power, potentially down to a mapping thing. It'd be interesting to see when we go and see Andy what he manages to do performance wise, but we're at 3,000 RPM, fifth gear, foot down. Yeah, it does go. It's not like that point where it's not moving, but unfortunately it's never going to be like the turbo stuff. You're never going to get that torque. Like if you went out and bought a Fiesta ST it would blow this out the water. There is no doubt. But as you saw from when we took out the 1.6 EcoBoost, which I did enjoy, cool little car, not really a fun car. Not the kind of car that you just want to take out through some twisty roads, smash through a few gears because you just rode a torque wave. Whereas this, you can generally just go out and have a good laugh. And like I say, it's not the most powerful thing, it's not the fastest thing, but in a day where we've got speed cameras, undercover cars, dash cams, it does make me think with like the E92, how fast do you want to go? Really, like, it's so easy to get carried away. 4 or 5 gears now in a lot of cars is 140 plus mile an hour. Whereas this, you can bang through 3 gears and still enjoy it and still realistically stay within the speed limit. So obviously guys, if you enjoyed the video, make sure you give us a like and a subscribe. Apologies for the weather, hopefully the footage doesn't come out too bad. It is pretty grim out at the moment and it's probably going to be like it for the next couple of months. But until next time, thanks for watching.